If you'd like online business explained to you in a way that you can actually understand, go to latenightim.com/explain. It's completely free, and I made it just for you. Now, how about an episode? Episode 163.
Late Night Internet Marketing.
This week on the Late Night Internet Marketing Podcast, we talk about the importance of creating consistent content for your audience. Why is it critical, and what can you do to make sure you get that done? All this and more on the Late Night Internet Marketing Podcast.
The Late Night Internet Marketing Podcast.
You've been working for somebody else, but you want a business to run yourself. You want to know how to start, where to begin. Can you get out your comfort zone, my friend? Yes, you can do it right when it's late at night. At the end of the day, your dreams burning inside. So keep it up and you will find that you're building your business one night at a time.
And now, broadcasting late at night from a little studio in the big state of Texas, your host, Mark Mason.
Hey, everybody. How are you doing? I am Mark Mason, coming to you live from the little studio in the great state of Texas, right here in Dallas. I'm not actually live. It's a podcast. I'm live right now, but by the time you hear this, I won't be live anymore. Hopefully I'll be alive, but I won't be live, if you know what I mean. I hope you're having a great week. A little late with the podcast episode this week. A lot of stuff going on. A lot of youth baseball. You guys know I'm crazy about youth baseball. My son plays 12-year-old baseball, and I coach it, and I absolutely love it. Youth soccer. My 9-year-old girl is coming on strong with her goalie activities. She's a pretty good little goalkeeper, and a lot of other stuff going on. Busy with my day job. It's just been a busy week, and I didn't get my podcast out on Thursday. I'm actually recording this on the Sunday subsequent to the Thursday when the episode was supposed to be released. And so that got me to thinking, boy, you know, I really need to do a better job of consistent content. This has been a problem for me personally since the beginning of my internet journey. And I think it's a really common problem with people who are doing some kind of marketing, some kind of project as a side hustle. For us side hustle people, we have to jam things in where we can. And one of the things that can be really difficult to do is consistent output of anything, because we're just working in the margins, and having consistent time to do any particular task can be really tough. So I want to talk about that today. First thing to do is to recognize it, that it's an issue. And if you're having this kind of issue, you're not alone, because I know the tendency is to crank up your podcast player and listen to a podcast from someone, particularly from someone who's doing this full time, and go, God, they're always, you know, their content's always so great, and they're always on the air when they're supposed to be. And, you know, I'm not doing that. Or I see this person is blogging 3 times a week, and I'm not doing that. So first mistake there, of course, is comparing yourself to others, but it is really important for you to show up consistently for your audience. As a matter of fact, in a recent podcast episode from Amy Porterfield, she discussed this episode when she talks about her 3-month content calendar. And I think that this was episode 250 of the Online Marketing Made Easy podcast. Let me read you what she said. She said, "The reason I'm such a stickler about consistent content is that in order to have a thriving online business, you must create content to help you attract your tribe. This is how people are initially going to find you. When I talk about consistent content, it might be a weekly blog, a weekly podcast, a weekly video show. Whatever it is, your content needs to get out there, and it needs to get out there consistently. A few years back," Amy says, "my own business took a significant turn for the better when I stopped only creating content in the empty cracks of time I had left at the end of the day." Now I'm going to stop there for a second. So that's what Amy has to say about this. And if that's you, if you're a part-time entrepreneur and you're creating content in the empty cracks of time you have left in the day. You're exactly where Amy was when her business was not growing at the rate she wanted to grow. Her goal is to hit $10 million with an M in sales this year. Okay. Now let's go on and hear what she has to say. I'd have a podcast maybe once a week and things would get busy and I wouldn't podcast for weeks. That sounds like the late night internet marketing podcast in the past. Then Amy continues, I would scramble to get another one together. There was no regularity at all. Amy says, since I was not showing up for my audience regularly, they were not a loyal tribe. They weren't waiting to hear from me. They weren't tuning in on a regular basis, and I was not top of mind. When I began creating consistent weekly content, says Amy, my email list grew quickly. In turn, I saw a significant increase in my overall revenue. I'm telling you right now, there is a direct correlation between the quality of your content, the growth of your email list, and your bank account, a direct correlation. Now, Amy goes on to talk about this, and I recommend that you go listen to episode 250. Amy's podcast is fantastic. And she talks about the fact that consistent content is the key to business growth. But it's not just Amy. A lot of content creators and successful entrepreneurs that I know, particularly my friend Chris Ducker, talk about this. And in fact, in his book, the Youpreneur book, which I totally recommend, this book, which I'll link to in the show notes that Chris has published over at youpreneur.com, is a fantastic person about building the brand of you, where you are the entrepreneur, Youpreneur. Great book. And in a giant chunk of the book, Ducker talks all about the importance of showing up consistently. It doesn't even really matter exactly what you're doing in most cases. Obviously, it's good to be wherever your audience, your potential audience lives, but it doesn't matter exactly what it is. It's that you be consistent, whether it's YouTube Live, Facebook Live, podcasting, whatever it is, blogging, you need to be there consistently. Now, for me, I have a dream. And my dream is to release this podcast every week without fail on Thursday morning at 6 a.m. That's my dream. That's what I wish to do. I don't always do that, but that's what I'm working towards. And that's my big goal for 2019, is to get into that mode. Now, there are other places that I want to be consistent, 2 other places. And one place is with live video. And for those of you that have noticed, I've started leaking out a little bit of live video content. You can go to my live video page over at latenightim.com/Facebook. That's my Facebook fan page. You can find live videos there, and you can click those to be notified whenever I go live if you're interested in that. Or you can go to latenightim.com/FB group and join the Facebook group. And I always repost the Facebook videos there in that group, so you'll never miss a live video. I intend to do that once a week. I'm getting the equipment together, getting ready. I've done a couple of test videos. You can see them there in the Facebook group. That's the second thing that I want to do consistently. And the last thing that I'm hoping to do consistently is email every Monday and Friday. Monday for the Motivational Monday email. I get a ton of positive feedback from you guys about those Monday motivational emails. Thank you very much. And Friday, just to tell you what's going on, what was, remind about the podcast and all that sort of stuff. So those are the consistent content goals that I have for 2019. What are yours? Do you have some? Are you committed to showing up regularly for your audience? Because I'm telling you, Chris Ducker and Amy Porterfield think you should, and I think you should. So there's 3 of us right there, and I'm trying to do this, and I think you should too for your business. So one of the actions for this podcast is for you to think about where you're going to be consistent with your content. Now, some of you may be saying, but what about Pat Flynn's be everywhere strategy? Pat Flynn said we should be everywhere and that his content strategy is to be everywhere. And I'm just a little guy and I can't be everywhere. So I'm going to do nothing. I'm going to be paralyzed by be everywhere. And I'm just going to freak out and choose to do nothing. It's just so overwhelming. I don't even know where to start. And Pat has addressed this, but let me tell you what he said. Pat says, well, sure, be everywhere eventually. He never meant be everywhere at once right now from the beginning. What Pat does, if you pay attention to what he does, is he is somewhere. First, it was his blog, and he masters that, dominates it. And then he moves to the next thing. For Pat, that was his podcast. And then he dominates it and moves to the next thing. And for Pat, that was probably, I'd say, Instagram is where Pat got really big next. But you could argue YouTube. So one of those two things. Pat's still working on making his YouTube channel exactly the way he wants it and is still evolving that strategy. So yeah, he's everywhere, but he didn't just do that overnight. So if you're there, if you're paralyzed because you can't be everywhere like Pat Flynn, let me say the Mark Mason strategy, be somewhere. Pick something that is going to be your number one thing where you're always going to show up. For me, that's the podcast. That's the highest priority thing. I've decided no matter what happens, this podcast is going to go out on a regular basis. And if it's not out, I'm going to put it out a few days late like I'm doing today. Okay, that's my priority, and you need to have a priority like that with regard to content creation in your business. So what is your priority? I'd love to hear from you. I'd love to hear from you either in the Facebook group or send me an email at feedback@latenightim.com. I'd love to hear from you about what you're doing about consistent content. So I know what you're saying. You're saying, Mark, okay, this is great. I agree with you. Creating consistent content is really important. I need to do this, but I have no idea how to do it. Okay, so let me give you some tips, some random tips that may resonate with you on how you can create content consistently. Now, I fully admit that this falls into the physician heal thyself category, right? I am not claiming that I am the poster child for consistent content. If you want to see the poster child for consistent content, that's Amy and Chris. I already pointed you to them, okay? I'm the Padawan learner of consistent content, right? I'm trying to get there, but I've got a bunch of consistent tips for you that will help us get there and get to consistent content. And the first one is obviously plan everything in advance. You gotta have a content calendar. Everybody talks about this. I've sent you to Amy's show, episode 250, for her content calendar. Leslie Samuel, if you Google become a blogger content calendar, you'll find Leslie Samuel's content calendar. Both of those are very good. You can make your own content calendar. You can do it in Excel and Google Sheets. You can do it on Asana. You can do it wherever you want to do. And Trello is a great place for a content calendar because you can have an ideas column. And as those ideas move into research and outline and edit and publish and graphics and all that, you can move those cards along. And Trello, that's an excellent place to go do that. Asana has that kind of Kanban board functionality as well. So but you need to have a list. And every time, tip number 2 is every time something occurs to you that might be a topic, you need to write it down. You don't need to flesh it all out, just something to jog your memory when you're going back to do this later and create this content. And the next thing the next tip I'll give you is to make sure you have a process flow, a template, a checklist, a way to move through the steps. That's one of the reasons that I like the Kanban approach, these little cards like are in Trello, where your piece of content has states that it's in. It's in the idea state or the outline state or the research state or the writing state or the, editing or graphic state or the publishing state. You can move through these states and you can be working on multiple pieces of content at a time. And if you run across something and you're in the mood to write a couple paragraphs on a piece of content that's not due for 3 or 4 weeks, you've got a place to put it and you can do that. So I definitely recommend that you do that. Use keyword research for your content ideas. This is another kind of thing that I've talked about in the past. And in fact, I just did a Facebook Live test video on this, and I will embed it into these show notes for methods that you can use for finding ideas for great content. So that'll be in the show notes at latenightim.com/163. You can watch that Facebook Live video and you can see my 3 favorite easy, free places to get ideas for content. I think you'll like that. Now, The other thing that you can do is you can make sure that you are using some plugins that will help you understand what keywords you're targeting and get you through sort of the publishing process. And for me, that's SEO at the Yoast plugin from the SEO plugin from Yoast. Easy for me to say, right? The SEO plugin from Yoast, because it has this checklist of stoplights that makes sure that your content is okay. And I just try to get all those stoplights to yellow, mostly to green, no red. And then I know that my content's pretty much okay. I know it's pretty readable. I know that the images are all tagged properly and all this kind of stuff. And so that's a really important idea. And it also, not only does it kind of make it easy for you to rip through the end part of your content, it ensures that over time that your blog is maintained in good condition. And that's an important thing, whether you're doing blogging or podcasting or vlogging in a case where stuff ends up back on WordPress. So have that kind of technology tools that you can do. Now, some of you are saying, Mark, I want to blog, but I don't have enough time to write, or I'm a terrible typist or whatever. One thing that I've done in the past that you can do, and I know a lot of people do this, heck, Pat Flynn wrote an entire book this way, is to dictate that into your iPhone and then have it transcribed. Now, my transcriptionist is someone who's been with me for almost a decade, Loretta Oliver. I'll link to her in the show notes. She's a fantastic transcriptionist, but there are also services online that you can order right on your app, where there are transcription services where you can record on your iPhone and you push a button and magically the transcript gets back into your email. I have that same kind of relationship with Loretta. I get better quality from Loretta than you'll ever get from one of those automated services, but still, transcription can do the writing for you. You can kind of spew out the ideas that you have, and you can have someone transcribe and even edit that content like that. One thing that you'll hear Amy talk about that I don't do, but you might want to do, is batching. And I think batching is a great idea. And that's the idea that, okay, I'm going to do 5 or 6 articles at once, or I'm going to block out half a day, and I'm going to do all my podcast episodes for the month in a half day. That is incredibly efficient. I completely agree for her with her point of view in doing that. I don't agree that that works well for me personally, because I don't have big time blocks typically. I can usually squeeze in something. It's more important for me to have an excellent list of short things that need to get done in the day than it is to have a giant block of time, because I don't have any giant blocks of time. All my giant blocks of time are taken up by things like my day job and my kids. So it's really stuff in the margins that I need to do. But blocking time may work for you. If you're in a situation where, for example, let's say you're a stay-at-home mom and you are your kids are gone to school during the day and you've got 1,000,001 things to do, but you're in control of that time, it might make sense for you that every Wednesday from 9 a.m. to 12 p.m. is going to be your internet content creation time, and you're going to work in a block and batch things in a block. And if that works for you, that's great. It's just not so great for me. I think, there's issues with distraction, and I think there are a lot of tools out there. So another tip for you is to make sure that you're in a distraction-free environment. I think this is particularly germane if you're writing. If you're writing something, then I think it's these editors that kind of turn everything off and just put the writing right in front of you is great. And when you're doing that, another tip, and this is from Michael Hyatt, is to have a really good outline kind of template for your blog post or your content. So for example, maybe your blog post always has an intro, a problem statement, some tips, a tool recommendation, and a conclusion. And so if your blog posts are almost always in that kind of format, that can speed along the writing quite considerably. Or for example, a podcast. Some podcasts have 4 or 5 different distinct sections. If you know what those are going to be, you can always work specifically on the one area that's next, and you don't feel so overwhelmed, and you can really get stuff done. Another thing I'll suggest to you is look at your process for publishing content and consider what kind of outsourcing can you do. For this podcast, I come up with a topic, I research the topic, I write some a run sheet kind of that talks about what I'm going to cover. Then I edit the audio, I record the audio and I edit it. And then I send it out to be transcribed by Loretta. And then I have someone who publishes all of that on the blog and gets it all set up for me and everything. And then promotes it in Facebook and makes a video and blah, 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 blah. So there's like a 12 or 14 step process. In the very beginning, I did all of that. And then slowly but surely, I've been moving that over to trusted people that help me with the show to do those important pieces. And you can do that too, even if it's a small thing, like uploading your video to YouTube. Maybe you have a teenager that's a YouTube expert. I had dinner with Daryl Darnell out at Social Media Marketing World, and he's having his son do video editing for him. And Daryl is a good video editor, but his son is awesome and he loves doing it, and he's learning a skill and he's contributing to the work that dad is doing. Dad, Daryl runs his own business. So that's a really cool thing. So maybe there are people in your life around you, your neighbors, your family that can help you get started. There's also, as I've talked many times, stuff like Fiverr, and you can even go as far as hiring someone either from overseas or from your local community to help you once you really get established. But in the beginning, if your husband's sitting around and he's a computer guy and he happens to know how to rename files and upload them wherever they go, maybe he would like to help you. Maybe he would love to be a small part of the thing that you're doing. So that's a good thing to think about. With regard to content, what should the content be? I think there's a lot of options for you out there. You can ask your audience what they want to hear. You can invite guests to be on your show or to contribute to your article or to your YouTube channel. You can create a case study of some sort where you did a thing that worked and you explain to people how you did it. You can ask for you can send out a survey and sort of report the results. Content roundups are still very popular, where you say, these are the top 14 articles on how to create content or whatever, and you kind of summarize and add value to that. Curating content is something that's still very valuable, because when people are looking for a solution to something, they don't want to go through the 1 million results returned by Google. They just want to know the top 4 or 5 articles and what the conclusion is from those articles and be on their way, because they're trying to solve a problem. You can help them with that by curating content. You can also outsource your writing. Now, if your voice is important to what you're doing, then I think that maybe that's not going to work for everybody. I'm not going to outsource the recording of my podcast, but I sure could and have in the past outsourced the research for the episodes, where people are giving me a bunch of information and some ideas of what direction I might go with an episode, and then I can construct that and do it in the way that I want to do it with my voice. But it sure helps me get started. And so you can do those sort of things. So those are some tips. So what have we learned? 1, it's really, 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 really important that you create content consistently. I struggle with this. Maybe you struggle with it. It's okay that we struggle with it. What's important is the journey to betterness, which is what we're on. We're trying to be better, okay? And so if it's important that you accept this idea that consistent content is one of the key things that you can do for your business. And I'm pretty sure that my belief now is it's not just for these kind of businesses, the online internet marketing business. I think even if you're running a local tire shop, consistent content, maybe Facebook Lives about auto maintenance and how to take care of your car and getting in front of people, is going to build trust, so that when they need new tires, they're going to come to your place, right? So whatever it is that you're doing, whatever kind of business that you have, whether it's a brick and mortar business or an online business or a counseling business or a speaking gig business or whatever it is that you're doing, consistent content marketing is the key thing that you should be doing on a consistent basis. And if you buy that, what I've tried to offer you is a handful of tips that will help you do it better. Let me know what you think. Let's hear from you at feedback@latenightIM.com. I'd love to hear from you. I try to respond to every message. I do my very best. So I'd love to hear what's up with you. I would also love to see you over in the Late Night Internet Marketing Facebook group. We hang out. It's chill. It's not real noisy over there. When people need help, they ask and we try to give it to them. It's latenightim.com/FB group. It's great to talk to you today. Today is an awesome day for you to take that next step in taking your business wherever it needs to go. There's no reason to wait until tomorrow. Whatever today is for you, whenever you're listening to this, today's the day. Go ahead and take some action. Be bold and let me know how things are going. Talk to you soon. Ciao.
You can do it right when it's late at night.
You've been listening to the Late Night Internet Marketing Podcast.
Be sure to visit latenightpodcast.com today to leave feedback for Mark. Download special bonus content, access the show notes, and more. See you there.
Until then, go and make some great progress on your internet business. One night at a time.
One night at a time.
Okay, so this Facebook Live journey has been kind of fun. I've been messing with lighting. My lighting's terrible, but I'm working on it. And cameras. I tried Logitech webcam. I don't think I'm ever going to be happy with that. I think I'm going to have to move over to the Canon GX7. No, that's a Panasonic. Whatever the Canon is that I have, I think I'm going to have to mount that up and give that a try. I think I'm going to like that better. But yeah, I got I got all the equipment ready to go in my little tiny studio, and I've been doing Facebook Lives and I'm enjoying them. They're fun. I've got some amazing software from the Mac called Ecamm Live, and I've got this little Elgato Stream Deck button gadget, which is really neat, there where I can push the buttons and switch between scenes. And so it's a little kind of poor man's Facebook Live telestream Telecaster kind of environment, and it's really cool. I'm enjoying it. It's a lot of fun. So catch me on Facebook Live. Go on over to the Facebook fan page and look around and find a live and click that button that lets you be notified whenever I go live, and you can have fun with me. They're really fun. Talk to you soon. Bye.
Late night internet marketing.
Hey, it's Mark again. I wanted to tell you one more time about this absolutely free resource that I have for helping people who are trying to get the big picture for internet marketing, actually get started and understand what all their choices are. If that's not you, there's no more content. You can skip to the end. But if you're someone who came to this podcast because you're searching for how to get started online and you just can't cut through all the noise, I get it. That was me. In 2007, when I was trying to get started, there were so many people throwing offers at me that I really couldn't even understand what all the different business models were. I couldn't understand how money moved around on the internet, and I couldn't really get a grip on what direction I wanted to go in so I could figure out how to move forward. I've created a free video resource for you just for that purpose at latenightim.com/explain. In several short videos, I just explained to you what internet marketing is all about and what online business is all about and the different options that you have for starting an online business. There's nothing to buy there. You just sign up for access and you get the videos just like that. So if that's interesting to you, or if you know someone who's in a same situation, send them that link, latenightim.com/explain. And let me know what you think. I'd love to hear what people are thinking that are in the exact same position that I was in more than a decade ago in 2007. In some ways, it seems like yesterday. And in some ways, it seems like an entire lifetime ago. Again, that's latenightim.com/explain.
Late night internet marketing.